Moments of danger that got our adrenaline pumping and made us feel lucky to be alive once we made it to safety. But there are some close call stories that defy logic, and some people who manage to walk away from a seemingly grisly fate. On Easter Sunday 2015, Victoria Celiers went parachuting in Wiltshire, England. As an experienced recreational skydiver, Victoria had made many jumps, but this one would end quite differently. Unbeknownst to Victoria, her husband, Emil Celiers, had sabotaged her parachute before the jump, removing crucial components that connected the parachute canopy to the harness. As she sped towards the ground, Victoria realized her parachute was faulty, but her backup chute would also not open. She fell a dizzying 4,000 feet before hitting the ground at a speed of 60 miles per hour. Such a fall would normally be fatal, but the field where Victoria landed had recently been plowed, and she happened to land on a particularly soft patch of earth. She was seriously injured, but incredibly, she survived. Police would later learn that Emil, a sergeant in the British Army, was having 2 affairs. He had promised at least one of the women that he would leave his wife, and he planned to cash in on Victoria's life insurance policy after her death. In fact, Emil had tried to kill Victoria a week before the jump as well by tampering with a gas valve in their home. Emil opened a valve in the kitchen while Victoria and their children were sleeping, then left to spend the night at his ex-wife's home. In the morning, Victoria woke and smelled the gas in time to prevent a tragedy. She even texted Emil that morning, jokingly asking if he was trying to kill her. Thankfully, luck was on Victoria's side, and both attempts on her life failed. In 2018, Emil was tried for the murder plots and sentenced to life in prison. He will have to serve a minimum of 18 years behind bars. Soon after, went skydiving again to raise money for the Wiltshire Air Ambulance, which she credits with saving her life. In April 2020, Victoria published a book about her ordeal titled, I Survived. Trying new things can be fun, but it can also be dangerous. Erin Langworthy learned this lesson for herself on December 31st, 2011. After graduating from university, 22-year-old Erin had embarked on a trip to Zambia. While on a safari, Erin took advantage of one of the activities offered along the way, bungee jumping over the Zambezi River at Victoria Falls, home to a large population of Nile crocodiles. Erin had never bungee jumped before, so she was nervous, but she watched dozens of others in her group safely complete the jump before her. Her own experience, however, would not be easy. As Erin prepared to jump, a guide helped her assume the appropriate position, arms spread wide at her sides. The guide nudged her off the platform, sending her flying out over the river. Nearly all the way down, the jump went normally, until suddenly, Erin's bungee cord snapped, sending her plummeting into the river below. She fell 360 feet before hitting the water. Erin somehow kept her cool. Currents of the river. She blew bubbles and followed them to the surface, but a portion of the bungee cord still attached to her. Operating off the coast of Nigeria, in the early hours of the morning, heavy swells caused the tugboat to capsize 20 miles from shore. Harrison was in the bathroom when the ship began to overturn and had to desperately search for a way out. He ended up in the engineer's office. Water began to fill the room, but it did not fill completely. Against all odds, an air bubble in the small space allowed Harrison to survive. The ship went down, as he remained trapped in the air bubble for nearly 3 days. Harrison had no food or fresh water. He struggled against the cold temperatures, and he had to listen to sounds of animals moving around the ship, which he thought were sharks or barracuda. A diving company was sent to the sunken ship to retrieve the bodies from the wreck. Divers were shocked to discover Harrison still alive 60 hours after the disaster. He was the ship's only survivor. Okay, keep in there. When the divers came upon him, Harrison was dehydrated and disoriented. His lungs were full of a near-fatal amount of nitrogen, but he was alive. He had to be rescued from the wreck very slowly and carefully. The divers strapped him into diving equipment, careful not to panic him, and he was led to a diving bell that transported him to the surface. Once there, Harrison was taken to a decompression chamber for 2 days to account for how deep underwater he'd been. Having walked away from certain death, Harrison continued working as a cook, but he vowed that he would never go back to sea. A tragedy at a New York City subway station became a miracle for one little girl. In September 2019, a 45-year-old man arrived at the Kingsbridge subway station in the Bronx, walking hand in hand with his young daughter. But to the surprise of the rush hour crowd at the station, the man, Fernando Balbuena Flores, jumped onto the subway tracks just as a train was approaching. Even more shockingly, Fernando pulled his daughter, who was just 5 years old, onto the tracks with him. Bystanders didn't have enough time to react before the train struck. Fernando was killed instantly, but his daughter impossibly survived. After the train had stopped, 2 Good Samaritans leapt down onto the tracks, where they coaxed the girl to crawl out from beneath the subway car and lifted her to safety on the train platform. She suffered scratches and lacerations, but due to her exact position underneath the train, her injuries were so minor that she was back at home with her mother and other family members later that day. Fernando Balbuena Flores was known to suffer from depression and had been on and off medication for it before he jumped onto the tracks. In a 1-in-a-million survival story, and thanks to the quick thinking of the 2 men who lifted her to safety,